Sarah Martinez had always been the kind of person who filled every room with warmth. Her laughter was infectious, her smile unshakable. She had lived a life full of adventure, travel, and accomplishments, but none of those things mattered in the face of the one thing she couldn't fight: cancer. Diagnosed 3 months ago, her prognosis was grim. Now, lying in a sterile hospital room with tubes running into her veins and machines beeping softly in the background, Sarah could only wonder if this was how it would end. The pain was constant, gnawing at her chest and ribs, but the weight on her heart was heavier than any physical ailment. There were questions, so many questions, that she could no longer ignore. Why me? Why now? Why this? What happens after we die? She had always believed in something greater than herself, something beyond the tangible world, but in her darkest moments, her faith felt so small. Would she ever understand the reasons for her suffering? Would her life mean anything when it was over? Each night as she lay in bed, staring up at the dull ceiling, she found herself praying, not with words of comfort, but with a cry of desperation. "God, help me. Please help me. God," she whispered into the silence, "please send me your messenger or an angel to ease my pain. I don't care which. I just need answers. I can't face this without knowing, without understanding. Please, before it's too late. I want a peaceful death, and if it is your will, to enter your kingdom." I know I have not been perfect. I have stumbled so many times. Even now I question your existence. But if you are there, please, forgive me. Each night the same prayer escaped her lips, a plea rooted in fear, uncertainty, and an unshakable yearning for peace. She needed to believe that, in the end, there was something more. "I refuse to believe we came from mere chaos. It had to be you, God. I know it was you." One evening, the pain was worse than usual. She could feel it deep in her bones, spreading like fire across her body. It seemed unbearable, and in that moment, her usual strength faltered. She closed her eyes and whispered again, her voice almost breaking. "Please, God, I need to know." She drifted in and out of consciousness, the lines between sleep and wakefulness blurring. The room, once so cold and impersonal, seemed to shift. The air thickened, not with heaviness, but with something else. Something she couldn't quite explain. The machines hummed in a steady rhythm, but there was a stillness in the air now. A sacred quiet that filled the space. Sarah's eyes fluttered open and she gasped in awe. In the far corner of the room stood a figure bathed in a soft golden light. There was something about it, something radiant and peaceful, otherworldly yet deeply familiar. Who are you?" Sarah whispered, her voice weak yet filled with wonder. "I am a messenger from God, the divine, the creator," the figure replied, its voice as gentle as leaves rustling in the wind. It was a voice she had never heard before, yet it seemed to come from everywhere, surrounding her, filling the room with an overwhelming sense of peace. "I've prayed," Sarah said, her heart racing with anticipation. "I've asked for answers, for something to help me understand. I need to know why." The figure stepped closer, its presence comforting, as though it were not a stranger, but a long-lost friend. "I shall answer your questions." Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she tried to sit up, though the weakness in her body made it nearly impossible. The figure floated toward her, not with urgency, but with a calm deliberateness, as if time itself slowed in its presence. "You wonder why you suffer," the figure said softly. "You wonder why life brings pain, loss, and grief. The answer isn't in avoiding pain, but in how you face it. Every life has its dark moments. Every soul must face its trials." "But why must I face trials?" Sarah whispered, her voice filled with sorrow and confusion. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. "But why me? Why now?" The figure knelt beside her, and for a moment Sarah was enveloped in a wave of unconditional love. The pain in her chest, though still there, seemed distant, fading into the background, overshadowed by the warmth that filled her heart. "You are not alone in your suffering," the figure said, its voice gentle and reassuring. "You are not being punished, nor abandoned. Pain is not the end, but a part of the journey. It teaches you to find beauty in the moments you would otherwise overlook. It shapes you, and through it, you learn to trust." "But I don't understand," Sarah whispered, her heart heavy with unanswered questions. "What happens after? What's the point if it all ends? Why was I born? Why bother living all these years, only to contract cancer and endure the pain? My loved ones feeling sorrow for me. The figure's gaze softened, a knowing smile on its face. Death is not an end, Sarah. It is a transition, a return to the source from which you came. Everything you've lived, everything you've loved, all that you've shared. It is not lost. It is carried with you into the next life. Sarah's brow furrowed as she hesitated, her mind racing with thoughts. What does the next life look like? How does it compare to Earth? The figure's expression softened with understanding. The next life is beyond your earthly comprehension, Sarah. It is not a place bound by time or space as you know it. Imagine a place where all that is pure, beautiful, and whole exists in harmony. A place of peace and unconditional love, free from pain, suffering, or the limits of the body. While Earth is full of contrasts, light and dark, joy and sorrow, the next life is one of unity and wholeness. You will not be separated from what you have loved, and the essence of who you are will shine brightly, free from the burdens that weighed you down here. Sarah felt a peace she hadn't known in months, a calm she had been desperately seeking, but hadn't found until now. Her fear of the unknown slowly began to dissipate, replaced by a profound sense of clarity. But I'm afraid, she admitted quietly. I'm afraid of leaving everything behind. My family, my friends. I don't want them to hurt. The figure's smile deepened. It is natural to fear leaving the ones you love. But remember, love is eternal. It does not end with death. It transcends time and space. And those who remain will carry you in their hearts. You are never truly gone. A long silence passed between them, and Sarah's heart swelled with emotion. So, I don't have to be afraid? No, the figure replied. You do not. Your journey is not over. It is simply changing, transforming into something greater. In that moment, Sarah felt the weight of her body. The pain, the fear, all of it, melt away. She could no longer feel the illness that had plagued her for so long. What remained was peace, pure and unshakable. Thank you, she whispered, her voice full of gratitude. The figure nodded, its gaze full of compassion. You are ready. There is no need for fear. All that you have sought, all that you have wondered, know that it is answered. Now, trust in the path before you. The figure stepped back, fading into the light that had filled the room, and as Sarah closed her eyes one final time, she felt a deep sense of calm settle over her, her heart at peace. In the quiet moments that followed, the room was still. The machines hummed softly, but Sarah no longer feared what was coming. She had received her answers, and when the time came, she would walk forward with love, without regret and without fear.